Hey investigators, welcome back to Crazy Crime News, your home for justice-driven true crime. Today, we're going deep into the Kimber Mills case with everything the community, the courts, and the investigators know so far. Whether you've been following every headline or you're tuning in for the very first time, this episode holds all the essential details and the newest developments that could change everything. Let's start by painting a picture not just of what happened, but where and to whom. Cleveland, Alabama isn't what movies would have us believe about small towns. It's closer, humbler, the kind of place where neighbors actually know each other's names. School football games are Friday rituals, and local news still matters just as much as, if not more than, the national broadcast. Kimber Mills grew up at the center of this world. At just 18, she was known for her relentless energy, the star of the school's cheer squad, a determined student, and the daughter everyone expected to go on to great things. Her ambition? Nursing, a career defined by service and compassion. For Kimber, helping others was more than a dream. It was a daily reality. Friends say she was usually the first to call if someone was missing from class, or to organize a food drive if the community needed help. But everything changed in the early morning hours of October 19th, 2025. Kimber left a bonfire gathering. What began as a joyful celebration with friends, having been shot in an instant of shocking violence. The accused, Stephen Tyler Whitehead, was not a friend nor a regular at these parties. According to official reports, Whitehead arrived uninvited, allegedly searching for someone he'd messaged online. Tension quickly escalated into confrontation. Witnesses described heated words, physical shoving, and moments later, gunfire. Kimber was wounded, once in the leg, once fatally in the head. 3 others were injured. Calls to 911 brought first responders racing through the woods. The community went from laughter to horror in seconds, with families swept into a nightmare that, even now, won't let go. In the days that followed, vigils lined the streets. Local cafes began collecting donations, and teachers turned their classrooms into safe spaces for grieving classmates. The Mills family, devastated yet resilient, made a powerful choice. Kimber, who had always wanted to help others, would become an organ donor. Hundreds filled UAB Hospital for her honor walk, a tribute not just to the life lost, but to the lives she would save, a gesture that turned mourning into hope. Since then, Cleveland has rallied, but also wrestled. The hashtag #JusticeForKimber resonates, as does a lingering question: how could this happen here? Town meetings now feature calls for safer school events, more transparent law enforcement updates, and a renewed commitment to keeping the memory of Kimber alive. Throughout our episode, we'll revisit every key detail. So, even if you're new to this case, you'll never feel out of the loop. If you have memories of Kimber, doubts about the investigation, or theories about the latest legal developments, this is your space. Comment below, share your story, and join a community determined, above all, to demand justice and change. Before we go further into the courtroom drama and the latest headlines, let's pull together the crucial details. Because no matter how well you think you know a story, real understanding starts with the people at its center. Kimber Leanne Mills was more than a name in a headline. She was 18, a senior at Cleveland High School in Blount County, Alabama, a rural, tight-knit corner of the state where high school sports are events everyone shows up for, where neighbors take care of each other, and where tragedy doesn't just touch a family, but an entire town. Kimber's life was a constellation of achievements and kindness. As a cheerleader, she wasn't only about hype and tumbling. Her squad remembers her as a motivator, the friend who would stay late after practice to encourage others, and the teammate who always believed that positivity made teams stronger. In class, she was driven. In hallways, she was approachable. Teachers describe her as both ambitious, already accepted to the University of Alabama and planning to go into nursing, and relentlessly giving. She volunteered at local food banks, mentored younger students, and wasn't afraid to stand up for anyone being picked on. But that optimism, that readiness to trust and to give, is precisely what makes her story, her murder, resonate with so many. And what about the man at the center of this storm, Stephen Tyler Whitehead? Whitehead, 27, was a relative outsider to Kimber's world. Public records and statements make clear that Whitehead was not part of the Cleveland high school circle. On the night of the shooting, police and witnesses say he showed up uninvited, looking for a young woman he communicated with online. Accounts from partygoers describe him as agitated from the moment he arrived. What exactly was said and how quickly things escalated is now part of the record being scrutinized in court. All reliable sources agree Whitehead and Kimber were not friends. His arrival at the bonfire brought tension, and his alleged actions set off a series of confrontations. One moment, the party was innocent. Marshmallows, music, laughter. The next, Whitehead was embroiled in an argument, and in mere moments had drawn a gun. According to testimony and official filings, the bonfire, known locally as the Pit, drew dozens of high schoolers for a celebration, an annual fall gathering after a football game. Whitehead arrived after midnight. He tried to contact a particular young woman who felt uncomfortable and sought help from friends. Tension became confrontation, both verbal and, briefly, physical. Witnesses report shoving, yelling, and then gunshots. Kimber Mills was shot twice, once in the leg, once in the head. 3 other teenagers were wounded in the gunfire. 911 calls brought police and EMTs rushing to the scene. By 1 a.m., Kimber was on her way to UAB hospital, unconscious, fighting for her life. Whitehead fled. He was arrested within hours, following a police search and tips from those at the party. These are the facts, confirmed by police, the Blount County District Attorney's Office, and hospital records. Have you heard these direct facts before? If your knowledge came from social media, did you see conflicting reports or rumors? Let's clear those up. Post any questions or local insights you have below. As news of the shooting spread through the early morning hours, shock and disbelief gripped not just the Mills family, but an entire community that would never be the same. What happened after that night at the Pit stands as both heartbreak and testament to the strength of a family and the unity of a town determined to honor Kimber's life. Kimber was rushed to UAB Hospital in Birmingham, one of Alabama's leading trauma centers. Doctors and nurses worked urgently, but her injuries, particularly the gunshot wound to her head, were catastrophic. Family, friends, classmates, and neighbors gathered in the hospital's waiting rooms. Local pastors arrived to pray. Within hours, news of Kimber's critical condition was trending across Blount County and into wider Alabama social feeds. The emotional gravity was immediate. School was suspended. The Cleveland High School flag was lowered to half-staff. Community centers, churches, and restaurants hosted prayer vigils and food drives for the Mills family and for the other teens injured that night. When doctors confirmed that Kimber's injuries were unsurvivable, her family made a profound decision. Kimber would become an organ donor, in keeping with her lifelong wish to help others. The response was overwhelming. Hospital corridors filled with hundreds of people for her honor walk, an emotional tribute in which medical staff, friends, classmates, and even strangers lined the halls as Kimber was wheeled to surgery. She saved at least 5 lives with her donation, a legacy of generosity that became national news and inspired a wave of organ donor registrations in her name. Meanwhile, the police and DA's office moved quickly. By noon the day after the shooting, Stephen Tyler Whitehead was in custody. He faced formal charges of murder and 3 counts of attempted murder. Public statements from law enforcement asked for patience, but promised a full and transparent investigation, including collection of all forensic evidence from the crime scene, though, as of now, specific details about weapon brand, shell casings, and DNA are not fully disclosed to the public. Soliciting tips and statements from everyone present at the pit. Coordinating with digital forensics to analyze phones, messages, and social media accounts from both the victim and the accused. Across the state, #JusticeForKimber and #HonorKimber trended, and news outlets reported not only on the legal case, but on the outpouring of community support for the Mills family. Public memorials popped up across Cleveland. Ribbons in school colors, photos, crosses, and flowers lined the school entrance and the site of the bonfire. As the investigation into Kimber Mills' death unfolded, attention quickly shifted to Jefferson County's courtroom, a place where hopes for justice and fears about the legal process collided for everyone involved. Stephen Tyler Whitehead, age 27, is charged with murder in the death of Kimber Mills and 3 counts of attempted murder related to the wounded teens. He was arrested within hours, and the Jefferson County Public Defender's Office confirmed they would represent him in court. Prosecutors fought to keep Whitehead in jail, invoking the high-profile Onias Law, an Alabama statute intended to allow judges to deny bond to people accused of violent crimes like murder. The law was named for Onias Blanchard, whose own tragic case led to calls for greater protection of victims and families. However, at an October bond hearing, a Jefferson County judge ruled Onias Law did not apply to this specific case. As a result, Whitehead was granted bond, a move that immediately sparked outrage among members of Kimber's family and the wider community. Petition drives and online debates erupted, with #No Bond for Whitehead trending locally and people calling for reform of the law's application. Both prosecutors and defense attorneys are actively collecting and preserving evidence, including witness statements, security footage of available digital correspondence, 911 call logs, and all forensic records from the crime scene. Witnesses, especially partygoers from the pit, have begun giving depositions. Some worry about social backlash and media attention, while others are vocal about the need to get every detail on the record. The DA's office is pushing for a swift trial, while the defense is carefully reviewing every piece of communications and arguing points about intent, escalation, and even mental health. The Mills family, local officials, and concerned citizens are attending hearings, demanding transparency and regular updates. The case, as of now, is still active. There has been no verdict and no sentencing. Whitehead's bond eligibility means he may be released as pretrial motions and legal arguments continue, a fact which keeps many in the community alert and sometimes anxious. In any high-profile homicide case, the careful collection and scrutiny of evidence can define the search for justice. Kimber Mills' case is no exception. As community attention intensifies, investigators and attorneys are now focused on extracting every possible fact, from digital trails to direct testimony. Modern homicide investigations hinge on more than just physical evidence. The court has formally ordered preservation and analysis of digital communications, both from the victim and the suspect. This means extracting text messages, call logs, and social media exchanges involving Whitehead and key witnesses. Reviewing any attempts Whitehead made to contact partygoers, both before and on the night of the incident. Forensically examining phones, laptops, and possible cloud accounts for clues about planning, intent, escalation, and possible witness corroboration. Dozens of party attendees have given or are preparing statements. The process is both sensitive and relentless. Lawyers are looking for consistencies, contradictions, and new leads. For those present at the pit, testifying brings its own challenges, emotional distress, pressure, and fear of misremembering under scrutiny. Law enforcement has set up support networks, offering counseling and legal guidance to underage witnesses. The Mills family and their supporters are working to keep attention on Kimber's positive legacy, while ensuring those who know the truth feel safe to speak. Cross-examinations have delayed some proceedings, as both sides want to ensure accurate, comprehensive records for trial. While some details, like the specific firearm model, DNA samples, and ballistic testing, are not publicly disclosed at this stage, investigators confirm all seen evidence remains secured and is being used in both reconstruction and expert analysis. The defense is expected to challenge interpretations of digital exchanges and assert that escalation at the party contributed to the outcome. The prosecution, meanwhile, is crafting a narrative rooted in the seriousness of Whitehead's alleged actions, community impact, and clear physical harm. For the Mills family, every update is both a step toward justice and a new wave of public attention. The balancing act, honoring Kimber's life while pushing for accountability, remains intensely personal. While the courtroom battles rage on, something remarkable has taken hold outside the legal system, a movement for lasting change. Kimber Mills' legacy now spans far beyond the fact of the crime. Her influence is pushing Cleveland, Alabama, and communities across the state to rethink safety, empathy, and action. In the months since her death, friends, classmates, and even strangers inspired by her story have united around a single idea: what happened to Kimber must never happen again. From small prayer circles to regional rallies, Honor Kimber isn't just a hashtag, it's a call to action. Scholarships are being formed in Kimber's name to support young women interested in healthcare and community service, mirroring her dream of becoming a nurse. School assemblies now routinely feature speakers on mental health, healthy boundaries, and recognizing predatory behavior. Teachers receive training in how to support grieving students and spot students who may be at risk, as victims or as individuals who might be struggling with anger or loneliness. Municipal leaders have pledged reforms, reviewing safety at youth events, upgrading emergency response systems, and revisiting the protocol for inviting and monitoring non-student guests. The Mills family, despite unimaginable loss, has become the face of compassionate advocacy. They speak at vigils, town halls, and media interviews, not to stoke anger, but to insist that communities must learn from tragedy, not simply mourn it. News of Kimber's honor walk at UAB Hospital prompted a surge in organ donor registration statewide. Social media users shared their own commitments to give life in her memory. Other families affected by violence, from nearby counties and beyond, have connected with the Mills family for mutual support, forming networks to help victims' loved ones through the ordeal of long, public cases. Statewide, the debate over Alabama's bond laws grows louder. Some lawmakers are calling for amendments to Onia's law, hoping to close loopholes and better protect communities from suspects accused of violent crimes. Memorials to Kimber continue to grow. Flowers, notes, and artwork at Cleveland High, the scene of the bonfire, and at the Mills family home. Each new hearing, each update from the DA draws a crowd, proving that public attention isn't fading. On TikTok and Instagram, young people post tributes and educational reminders in her honor, using her story as a catalyst of prevention and support. As of late October 2025, the Kimber Mills case remains very much open in Jefferson County, Alabama. While many major facts are public and confirmed, the legal journey toward justice continues, marked by hearings, witness preparation, and mounting advocacy from the Mills family, their supporters, and a vigilant community. Stephen Tyler Whitehead is charged with 1 count of murder and 3 counts of attempted murder following his alleged actions at the pit. Bond has been debated and granted. As of the most recent filings, Whitehead has the option for release ahead of trial if the set amount is paid. The DA's office continues to advocate for tougher pretrial detention in cases of violent crime. No verdict has been reached, and no sentencing has occurred. The case is in pretrial motions, where evidence, witness lists, and legal strategy are being assembled daily. Both prosecution and defense are reviewing digital evidence, social media communications, and forensic findings. Every piece could affect how the case is argued in front of a jury once the trial begins. Kimber's loved ones continue to speak out. They ask not just for a fair and thorough trial, but for greater protection for other families. In recent interviews, they focus on supporting organ donation, calling for school safety reforms, and making Kimber's vivid memory an inspiration for youth empowerment. The family attends every major hearing, surrounded by friends and community supporters. They're resolved to see justice through, and their call for calm, compassionate change set the tone for the entire town's response. The legal process is ongoing and can stretch for months or even years, especially in high-profile, emotionally charged cases such as this one. Witnesses will continue depositions and cross-examinations. Attorneys will present motions, argue over admissibility, and prepare for what could be a lengthy jury trial. Advocacy groups are working to keep the momentum high, calling for updates, transparency, and, above all, lasting legal and cultural change. Crazy Crime News isn't just an audience, it's a force for accountability and support. Commentary, questions, and theory sharing help keep all eyes on the details and prevent critical stories from slipping into silence. What would justice look like to you if you were in the Mills family's shoes? How can communities help victims between arrest and trial? What questions do you have about the current legal process, or about how jury selection and evidence rules shape the future of this case? Post below and help us build a discussion that keeps justice at the heart. You're not just viewers. You're a critical part of this investigation, bringing attention, care, and reasoned theory to a case that remains unresolved. Whether you're following every legal twist or are new to Kimber's story, your engagement gives power to the pursuit of real justice. Together, we form a community united not only by curiosity, but by empathy and action. Every comment, every question, every story shared here keeps the pressure on systems and lawmakers to do better, not just for Kimber, but for every victim whose story needs to be heard. As a forensic psychology researcher and your guide here on Crazy Crime News, my commitment is to the facts. I'm tracking every new motion, every court filing, and every major update in Kimber Mills' case. so you always have the newest, most accurate information. When the trial progresses, when legal arguments shift, when the Mills family call for new action, you'll know about it here, always with transparency and respect for the truth. All of us, viewers, researchers, advocates, families, have a role. We ask questions, hold institutions accountable, and refuse to let the news cycle wash away unfinished stories. Kimber's case isn't closed, and neither is our commitment. So, investigators, what do you want to see happen next? Are bond laws protecting or endangering families in your view? Should digital forensics get more priority in violent crime cases? Add your theory, your solution, or your personal experience in the pinned comment. Let's use our collective insights to make real change. Remember, subscribe and join the investigation squad to keep the discussion alive, support the Mills family, and be here for every major development. Crazy Crime News will follow this story until justice takes its full course and beyond. Justice delayed is not justice denied. I'll see you in the next investigation.